some of the parts that we're going to be dealing with on this next lesson. The wishbone, I've already glued that together, but I'll show you that in a minute. And I've already cleaned all these up with sandpaper. We got the stock arm here and the support right there, the spring that goes inside that. We got the butt stock. Actually, it comes in two pieces. If you ever forget how to get a hold of me, my email address is right there on this little locking tab, and that just gets glued right in there in that hole. I've already done that on this one. Alright, we got the I forget what he calls this, push rod that goes inside, and the locking tab that goes in the pin. And then we got the shoulder bearings, or hat bearings, whatever you want to call them, and two roll pins and two screws, the flat-headed screws. That's all the parts of the holding stock. I wanted to show you this clip. It's now in two pieces. You got this little button. After you tear away this support there, you glue this. That hole goes into that pin goes into a hole down in there, and it'll sit just like this. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get in there with your finger if you got big hands like me, but you got to hold it in position so it'll dry in the right place. Okay? And then that will clip right into, see, I got one here already cleaned. So when you put your clip in, make sure you put in the front edge first so that little tab there will lock in place. Okay? And then depress this little button until it goes inside, and then you can hear it click in place. So that clip's not going anywhere. And that's also going to be where you store the battery if you choose the electronics option. Alright. We also have the grip, which I've already cleaned up with sandpaper, and you're supposed to kind of knock these hard edges off when you're sanding it, so don't worry about getting onto that grid pattern too much. And then there's the trigger plates. These now, when you're sanding these, the A, the R, and the S, you'll notice here on mine I screwed up. I tried cleaning it out with the edge of a knife like this, so I busted out the center on the R and the A. So if you don't want to do that, try using compressed air, like one of those keyboard cleaners or something if you don't have a compressor, and blow those out with air. You'll notice that the back edge, the right trigger plate here, the trigger goes in place there, and you'll see that the spring is already built into that trigger plate. These two little tabs here, that will be, if you go with the electronics option, that'll secure that trigger switch, the electronics trigger switch, as well as this round recessed area is for the 3-position selector switch. Alright. You got the trigger spring, no, I'm sorry, the switch spring, which if you go with the mechanical switch, no electronics option, you'll glue this in place right there. Make sure that you leave room around there for this edge, because it has to sit inside of that circle, so make sure you don't go right up against the edge. And then the switch, the switch pin back here, will rest on that, and that'll stop it from free floating in there. Alright, first let's go ahead and finish up. I'll show you how I did this this D-ring here. Is at the breech there. I made a 3-piece, this little disc, and these 2 pieces here to hold the D-ring. And the reason I made it split like that is if you want, you can put a metal one in there. But I'm not going to, so the reason I'm not putting a metal ring in it is because the gun only weighs like 2 pounds. So the plastic D-ring should hold it fine on a strap. Alright, so then we got our the plate here that this will go through. then go through the hole there. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue that up. Alright, now it's important to get this straight, so I'm going to have to move it here so I can see it. Not you, I'm sorry. But you need to make sure it's straight, that's all. Next, let's go ahead and glue the wishbone together. I've already sanded these up except for the fine tuning. So take this one here and you want to sand the mating surfaces where it's going to be glued up to the other one, you know, just to give it something to glue to. And then the mating surfaces on this. You want to be careful here. This piece is probably the most delicate piece of the build until it's mated with this one, and then it's perfectly strong. But so, and if you do split it, a little super glue, it fixes everything, you know. See how that fits. Alright, looks good to me. I'm going to put some glue on there. I'm going to hold this for the 15-20 seconds, you know, maybe 30. Then I'll set this aside and I'll finish sanding this up. Alright, so I finished cleaning this up, and you want to pay some special attention. It's really hard to get on this inside curve, I can understand that, but the rest of it, you can get at it. You just got to use your sticks and clean up these little tabs. The tabs we'll see how those work in a few minutes. You notice the holes here are large enough to hold these hat bearings, and that's where they go. Okay. You got to clean up all the detail on this with your sanding sticks and then sanding sponge. All right, so this will go right in there like that, and you'll take those hat bearings and the slotted screw. It's a little bit tight, but it's supposed to be. Actually, it might be better off to put this through the bearing first. There. So we're going to take that and screw it right into that pivot. So you see how that works, and then see those tabs, you push in on that. So we need to remove some of this material here at the end of this cap. Take that cap off. That right there, that material, we're going to take a little bit of that off. Looks like about even with the this contour that just follows it around. There we go. Now let's see how it fits. A little bit more. There it goes. That looks good. So that's how that locking mechanism works. Alright, so this we'll take the spring, stick it inside, take this plunger, and it's oriented with the hole into the slot, so you push that in there, and then right now I'm just going to test the fit. I clean that up with sandpaper. You need to make sure that it slides freely in that slot, because if it doesn't, then it'll bind up. Alright, so we'll leave that in here for fitting unglued for now. And then this will go in that position right there. Take the small roll pin. Alright, so, and that tab goes down. Well, it'll be up, but you know what I mean. Alright, so we'll put that through there. Make sure it goes all the way through. Now, if it's tight enough and you don't feel like gluing it, you don't have to. But I usually do put just a tab of glue on one side or the other of this. Okay. Alright, so after you clean that all up, so that little tab is gonna push on that plunger after you get this in there. You gotta kind of put it in there and then get it kind of preloaded on that spring a little bit for the roll pin to fit in right. Alright, so we'll get that started in the first hole. Get that preload I was talking about, and then slide it all the way through. Alright, so if I did my job right, that should lock right into that tab. Might have to clean it up a little bit with sandpaper, but this is the way it works. That will fit in. Yeah, so you need to clean that up a little bit, and that'll fit in there, and then when you fold it, that locks it in place. Alright, and then to open the stock, well, this is probably going to pull, oh, okay, because I thought it wasn't glued, so. And then that springboard in there, see those two little tabs? They're gonna fall right into these slots and then lock in place, just like the real one does. Alright, so then you open that up, and there you go. There's a locked stock. And unlock it, push in here, until that comes up. Fold it over, and get it in. There it is. Okay, well, as we work on the trigger group, we don't want this to get in our way, so let's go ahead and take these screws out. Alright, and I'm going to take out the clip. And I'm going to take out my, the D-ring. You know, if you didn't use the metal one, you can just stretch this right over it. Alright. And we're going to take this apart. Take this charging handle off. There we go. Okay, there's my bolt. Alright, now the trigger group. You can go ahead and take the right trigger plate after you've cleaned it all up to your satisfaction and the grip, and you can go ahead and glue that in place right there. And it just goes right up against it, so you can just hold it like that. Now the way that this is gonna go in, see that hole right there is gonna align with that pin. So that's how you know you got it right. And then this tab will fit inside of that barrel section right there. Right. But we're not gonna glue this in place yet, right? But in the meantime, like I said, your trigger will go there. And if you're doing the manual installation, which I'm going to try to do both here, so I'm only going to glue this with a tiny, tiny bit of glue. And then hopefully I'm going to pop it off later. Alright, so like I said, you got to make sure you leave enough room for that circle. Alright, so take your trigger, the other trigger plate, and this in the switch piece here, and put it through the hole. Put it in the middle of the three positions, okay, so you have a reference. Alright. Now if you put this together, alright, you can put one of the provided bevel-headed screws right there to hold that in place. And this is the same switch handle for whether you're using the electronic kit or the manual kit like this one here. Right, so now the reason that spring is there is to give it enough filler space. You can't force this switch, it'll break. It's only plastic. Alright, so it'll go from position to position. You just got to treat it with some delicacy. And that's why that spring is there, to give it a little bit of a cushion. Right? But you can see how it fits. Alright. So you can see that there's those two tabs there will line up when you put the hole in the right place. Alright, so if you're building the mechanical switch and you want to just glue all this together, it's not an issue. But if you want to use this, if you do the electronics version and you ever hope to maintain your switches and stuff in there, this cover has to be removable, and that's why I put the screw in there, okay? But it doesn't do too well because of the two holes here and those two pins that match up. They bind when you're trying to slip this plate into place like that. So if you cut about half of that off and bevel it, it'll fit in there like that and be removable. Alright, so if you're doing a straight mechanical build and no electronics, you can glue this together and go ahead and install this at this time. The trigger guard. Just make sure that if you're going to make it removable when you glue this in, you only glue it on this side. Alright. I'm going to put the other side on though, so I can use it for reference to make sure it's nice and straight. But I'm only going to put the glue on this side. And just eye it, make sure that it's nice and straight. If you want, before it sets up too much, you can pop this off to make sure none of that glue transferred. Alright, the rest of this lesson is going to be for the electronics install. So if you didn't get the electronics package, you can go ahead and skip to the next lesson. Alright, if you bought the electronics option, you would have gotten a separate little baggie that would have these three components in it. I think Kurt Ramsey did a great job engineering this. It's really foolproof. The connections are color coded and cannot be switched because they're male and female. And it's a nice tight little package. Alright, so we're going to show you how to get started with that. We'll take our barrel assembly before we installed our grip. We're going to feed this tube down that center hole through the ammo port there. It's okay to bend it a little bit, get it going. If you run into a snag, you may want to try to run it down this way first. Make sure, because that where the two barrels come together, on mine I hit a snag there, and I had to use rat tail file just like this, and I went down the barrel, just got it a little bit like that. Must have had a little bit. You could also avoid that by cleaning it out before you put it together, like I did not. So you take this, go in through the ammo port, and slide that down there until you can get this one in there. Just got to go in that little hole that's at the bottom. That's almost looks like another barrel. I had to trim my plastic a little bit to get it to fit down in there right. And sometimes it takes a little persuasion, you know, so just be delicate with it, but got to get it in that hole so it looks right. There you go. See, it just went in there. Also, you can tell you got it in right if you look, and your LED is pretty close to the end of the barrel. Now, the LED won't protrude past the end of the barrel because I made this hole a little bit smaller. Okay, so when you put this on, the LED should rest right in the correct place. Okay, and now that you got that in there, you want to just try to get those wires to the bottom and as out of the way as possible, and leave that hanging out like that. We'll set that aside for now. Now this is the more complicated connection. It'll go in the trigger group. That's why we only glued the 1/2 on there first. Alright, so the round switch obviously goes right there for the impression. And then you can see that the 2 little holes on that switch will fit. It looks like I broke one of those tabs off. It still worked. So let's put it in there. Alright. Oh, let's put the trigger in first. And then we'll put that trigger switch in there. Alright. So after we get this all pretty much where you want it, then you can put this cover on and it'll actually help to position that switch. Make sure I got my switch in the right place. Alright, together. So now you can take your bevel-headed screw. Screw that right in there. Don't strip it out, and if you do, just drop some glue in there. And then you'll see the switch cap fits on there, but it is kind of proud from the thing. So if you want to grind down that post a little bit, cut a little bit of it off, so the switch sits closer to the thing. As you can see, it operates perfectly fine. All right. Let's go ahead and slip the speaker in place. Now you insert it from this side, face down, so it'll line up with that grid. And mine, when I put it in there, and you try to follow in that little slot on the left, you can see it from the other side now. And mine just seem to kind of snap into place. See? I mean, it ain't going anywhere. So hopefully they'll all work like that. If they don't, you can put a little hot glue on it from here, and that'll hold it in place. Alright, we're just going to let that dangle for this moment. And we're going to go ahead and come through this battery pack, and this harness has to come in through here. And then the battery pack is going to come back through there, but for now, in order to make things easy, I'm going to put it over here. Well, alright, so now we got everything coming out the ammo port. The ejection port, sorry. into these two slots, and that pin will fit into that hole, but I just realized we're going to have to remove some more material here. Alright, so I glued my switch in, this one here, because I broke one of those little tabs, but I've got it aligned correctly and it works. And this one here I'm just leaving free floating for the moment. Probably like that. You can do that with your X-Acto knife if you want to. So we'll feed all this through there again. Bringing it out. The ejection port. Now we'll see if this fits. And it looks solid to me. I think it fits beautifully. So I'm going to go ahead and apply glue. Okay, now we already got our speaker in there. Now we can make our connections. Here is blue male to blue female, red male to red female. Here we got red, blue, alright, now the battery you want accessible through the ammo port, so we're going to go ahead and stick that straight through. Just let that hang out there for a second. This we're going to go ahead and stick this way in there right after the battery port. And yep, and just try to tuck everything to where it'll fit behind that bolt. You don't want the bolt slamming to interfere with these wires. Make sure you kind of tuck everything in there nicely. Battery's access is right there. Everything looks clear to me. Alright, so we can put two AAA batteries in it, and then you can go ahead and, remember I said put the clip in from the front. Put your clip in, and there you have your gun. Alright, and